the meeting to order. Would you call roll call, please, Sandra?
Not used to these 5 o'clock meetings.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Okay, where's the sheet? Oh, we don't have them meeting. There they are. Roll call, okay. Councilperson Bruni?
Yes, here.
Bruni. Here. Perry?
President.
Hanson?
Here.
McGinty?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'd invite you to ask questions, make comments on the agenda as you see it. And again, item number 4, citizens' opportunity to address the council on items not on the agenda. Doesn't get me tongue straight here. With that being said, we'll go on to item number 2, consent of agenda. A, approval of agenda. B, approval of the minutes of the March 25th, 2014 council meeting. And C, claims.
Is the Oil and Spiegel Puppet Theater coming out of their TNA account, general account? Where's that coming from?
Actually, you could designate where you'd want that to come from. I believe they have enough money in both accounts.
I'm gonna guess it's their allotment. If it's art
Yeah, right
council,
now
it
it's out
would
of
be
the
their
allotment.
allotment, because they haven't spent any of their allotment.
Yeah. They didn't distinguish in what they shared with me, so I know when I coded it, I coded it for the allotment. But I believe there's enough money in both the allotment and the TNA to cover that.
I would move the consent agenda. I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve consent agenda, approval of agenda, minutes of the meeting on March 25th, 2014, and claims. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Bruni?
Yes.
Bruni? Yes. Perry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 3, projects. A is Sac City facade project. Number 1 is discussion on facade project cash flow options.
Last Monday, there was, not this last week, but a week ago, I guess I should say Monday, there was a meeting of the facade committee, and during that discussion, I had brought up some issues that had come up. I guess I should back up and kind of explain how the cash flow for this project works. The first is that you have a portion of the bill being paid by Community Development Block Grant. It looks like when all is said and done, that's going to equate to in the neighborhood of about 63% of the cost, 63% of the cost of the overall project. Then you have a portion that the city is paying for. That looks like that's going to roll down to about 20% of the project. And then you have a portion that the private investors or private partners are going to pay for, which it was 16.2% of the project. You might remember we've been talking about 20%. Well, there were some outstanding questions with the state, and now that we've had those answered, the overall cost to the private partners is going to be about 16.2% of the project. Nothing as far as the cost schematic as far as 150 and the 500 and things of that nature have changed. It's just the way that breaks down to every other bill with the exception of the administration of the grant, which will 100% come out of CDBG. Otherwise, those are the percentages that generically the project will be paid for. Now, to say it will be paid for and to say that at the time we're ready to pay the bill, that the money will be sitting there to pay for that are two different things. What will end up happening is CDBG takes between 5 to 8 weeks to pay on an application for pay. So say, for instance, on April 1st, we receive a bill for the project. We approve it on April 8th. It is likely going to be somewhere between mid-May and the end of May before I get the 60-some-odd% that CDBG is paying for that bill. Well, in the case of the city's money, it's already sitting there. That 20% is not an issue. Then you have the private partnership portion of this, which is 16.2%. That amount would not be coming in, and based on what I'm hearing from the committee, until about the time of the bidding process, which I believe that will be sometime in between late June and late July. Sometime in that time period is when we will realize that 16.2% of the project. So when I talk about there being a gap in the cash flow, the gaps are the fact that between now and, let's say, mid-July, there's 16.2% of the project that there's not cash sitting there till that time to cover those costs. Then in the case of the CDBG money, we are likely going to be in a case that we're at least going to be one bill behind throughout the entire project of getting our money from the state when the bills are due to be paid to either the contractor or to the architect. So the questions before us have to do with how we are going to cash flow the project. And we have a couple of options on how we do that. The most common option is an internal loan option. An internal loan option, and we've done these before, we did one during the sewer project. And what we did there is we set up to borrow money from a fund, a city fund that has money sitting in a reserve, and we use that money to pay against those bills until the money came in. And what we do is we basically transfer the money, but that's basically how it
Or we
works.
did not do it.
We didn't end up having to do it, but we did set up to do it. We didn't end up using it. The second option is an external short-term loan. In that case, of course, what we would do is we would talk with the local banks. We would work out a deal with one or more of them to have an open loan account for the purposes of assisting us in short-term periods of paying for the money. There would be interest involved in that aspect of the project, and I can tell you that interest would be reimbursable per the project. However, that reimbursable interest, of course, is increasing the overhead cost of the process and reducing the amount of overall money that's available for the purposes of the actual construction. With that said, these are decisions that the council has to make as far as which options they want to proceed with. Now there was, when I originally started to put this packet together, a third option I was throwing out there. And the third option was based on some discussions I had had from our representative from Region 12, and that was the potential that we would do some kind of mixed proportionment on different elements of the project. And what I mean by that is, it's much like the administration of the grant being 100% coming out of the grant. One of the things that I was suggesting is we could have 100% of the architectural fees come out of the grant, which means when the construction costs come, of course, the outset that the percentages for the overall project match, both us and the private investors would end up paying a higher percentage on that portion of the project, but in the end, the project percentages would all match out. We presented that option. I presented that option to Fred so he could share it with the state, with Region 12, so they could share it with the state before tonight's meeting. That option was rejected. They weren't interested in that option. So I floated a second option. The second option was that up until the time when we got bids in and knew pretty well what an ideal number for the project would be, that we could do cost for the project on a 70-30 basis, where the grant would pay for 70% and the city would pay for 30% of the upfront cost. So that way there's more local match in the bills in the get-go, but at least we are not taking on all the cost of the private investment portion till that time. That idea was also rejected by the state. Their response to us was that they were taking, why they might have allowed that in the past, they've had some issues with HUD, and HUD's not particularly liked them doing that process. And so you will see that that's not even discussed anywhere in your packet. I took that out. I throw it in just to know that in the initial discussion there was a third option being thrown at you tonight that was eliminated during my discussions on Friday. So We currently have already approved a bill from last month, and we have another bill from the architect this month. In order to make payments on these bills, I have to have some clarification from the council on a couple of different elements you'll see here tonight. One is I need to know, are we going to set up an internal loan? Because if we are going to set up an internal loan, there has to be a public hearing in order for the city to loan money to itself. That's a requirement by state law. You'll see that referenced on number 9 tonight on the agenda under projects. The second one would be as if we're going to do external loans. Now, the reason you don't see it on the agenda tonight is if we do choose that option, we're not in an immediate hurry to set that up. I mean, we need to move forward on it, but we need to be setting that up. And the reason why is right now, while the architectural bills are, I mean, altogether, his bill's going to be about $150,000, so the percentages are not gross yet. But once we get to the construction part of this project, the city's internal loan options will not be enough to pay for the cost of the bills. So we would need to have some type of alternative option, or when we set up the bids for the construction, we need to include the option of terms of net 60. That way, that would secure us from getting paid from CDBG in the process. So that would be another potential to doing an external loan, and we can discuss that more. But what I need to hear from the council is do they have questions about doing the external process? Do they have feelings about that? Or do they have the same about the internal process?
Adam, I just need some clarification because I either misunderstood you or some other information was given. I heard you say that at the time of bidding, we would have 100% of the investors' money?
No.
Okay.
That's when the first influx of investor money would come into the project.
Yeah, not 100%, because
No.
that makes it sound like they have to pay it all before they even get the project going.
No.
Okay.
In fact, what I
Right.
heard, and of course,
I thought
it
they
was
said
tentative on
70.
the terms of the facade committee, but at least where I heard the facade committee leaning a week ago Monday was the idea that maybe having 75% during that time period. Which initially the discussions had turned towards 50-50, but the thought was being maybe more that would be a 75-25 type of scenario. And I'm not so much concerned about that, but
No,
to
I know,
clarify.
I just did want to clarify that, because there are people that would have questioned that number, that's all.
If we do an internal loan, I mean, we're losing not only cash flow, but probably interest on some investments that we would have. Can we recoup the interest ourselves?
Well, we are required by state law to charge ourselves interest on our own loans. And I know we are losing about a 1% collection on the CDs that we carry by having that money liquefied to be able to be used for these cash flow purposes. So are we losing money? Yes, we're losing revenue in the way of, I think I figured it up to be about $5,000 a year in interest is what we'd be losing on the collection. As you know, Bruce, I have asked that question, and I will tell you that the state was a little bit stumped by the question. It was both Region 12 and the state both signified that they had been asked that question before. And they said they'd get back to me. I was hoping to have an answer by tonight, but they weren't able to clarify whether that was an option or not. Now, I would assume that if it's a state law, I have to charge myself interest, that would be a reimbursable cost, but that would be pure speculation on my part.
I guess my personal feeling is that, the city has committed $150,000 to the project, which I think is great. But if we're floating it and jeopardizing ourselves totally in terms of cash flow, maybe we would be better off to either look at some external possibilities, or at the very least, when we're trying so hard to make the general fund not go the direction we don't want it to not be losing income in the process of doing it too. That's just my personal feeling.
Does anybody need clarification on anything? I think that there's two choices from what I understood.
Or you can
There's an
choose both.
internal or there's an external, and either way, we pay interest.
But the interest is reimbursable,
In the case of external, that is very clear.
for sure.
Yes.
But you're not sure yet on the
And the
internal.
So the internal, we visited a little bit earlier today, you indicated that the internal amount would be in the amount of 40 to 50,000, is that?
I suspect we would be looking at that during the period of the architectural process. And of course, the idea I was floating was the idea that we would use the internal short-term now, before things got too serious, when the bills are relatively small. And that if we ended up also doing external, that as the bills start to add up, we'd move over to the external side of this process. Because once we get into the construction phase, you may be talking about expenditures in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $250,000.
So we're gonna end up putting out more of the money than the 150, but we'll recoup our losses on that when the CDBG comes through, right?
With possibly the exception of any internal interest.
So why
Because I
would we
can't
look at that
take it
option
from-
if we would recoup any external interest? Why would you want to not go that direction?
Short
I'm
term
not
is
understanding.
purely the issue there. We already have bills from the architect that I need to pay. And in order to pay those, I need to solve I need to be able to solidify that we can borrow the money to pay the portions that aren't the city's obligation. And in order to do that, we have to have a public hearing, and the city council has to approve that. The shortest path to doing that was an internal process.
So then that's what you're asking for, short term. There's really
Yes.
not a choice. I mean, that's what we need to do in order to handle it
In
now,
my
so-
opinion, on a short-term purpose, you don't have, I don't see any other choice on a short-term
If
purpose.
we were to amend the public hearing from 150 down to 50,000 and put a time frame on it, would that be possible?
Yes, that should, for the most part, with our architectural, the only fees we're expecting between now and mid-June to mid-July is architectural fees. And those aren't expected to exceed $150,000. Well, if you see that the city is expected to pay 20% of that, and you're not gonna get it all in 1 month, so the idea is probably 50,000 would probably be a fairly safe number. I might try to convince you of 75.
Well, if you don't use it, you don't use it. So why
Absolutely.
don't you get approved enough to take care of it and not have to come back in 2 weeks? And if you don't spend it, you don't spend it.
I get, one advantage of that is if we have a lower cap on it, then if like the CD that you're talking about that you're keeping liquid, you could reinvest
Part of the money.
part of the money and not be losing.
If you don't have to take it out in the first place, it would be better because you're probably getting a higher interest rate than you'll ever get today.
Right.
So it's
So
kind of a
probably better to go
crapshoot.
full.
I don't know. So, discussion, or are you ready, or?
Well, if you wanted to take action on an internal, that is actually 9 on the agenda, so there would be no action to
Okay.
take at this time. And we've kind of already moved into 2, which is the implementation and discussing the time periods. But if we want to do an external one, what I would do at the next meeting is I would set a public hearing for the external. The issues with the external is what we do is then we'd have a public hearing for that. And then we would go out and shop the local banks. And so there's a little more process involved in the external side.
Are you actually asking for a combination though? Do you want them to go ahead and
I
prove
think
short
for
term?
right now, approving the short term, I would think with expectation that we would be doing the long term sometime in the next 2 months. We'll be
Okay.
taking steps on the long term process, which
Is
would be
everybody
external.
clear?
You're talking short term for now.
Yes.
Okay, are you ready to move on to 3 then? Consideration of approving CDBG drawdown number 3 in the amount of $6,000.
So we can do these prior to
Yes.
passing the resolution?
This is purely requesting the percentage of the project is being paid for by the grant. This is not affected by anything we just discussed, other than we need to get it applied because we need to get the application filled in.
But the loan would be part of like number 6, private funding.
Yes, yeah, I'll talk about that more when we get down there.
So the
This
6,000 is then actually 63% of the 940,546 bill?
Yes, yes. And why we won't likely have it at the time we're ready to pay the bill, this allows us to request the money from the state so we can start that 6 to 8 week process to begin so we can get reimbursed.
I'll make the motion to approve the CDBG drawdown number 3 in the amount of $6,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the CDBG drawdown of number 3 in the amount of $6,000. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Bruning?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Number 4 is consideration of approving the Frank's Design Group's bill in the amount of $9,485.46.
That's the current bill for this.
I would move to approve the Frank's Design bill in the amount of $9,406 or $405.46.
I'll second it.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve Frank's Design Group's bill in the amount of $9,405.46. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Bruning?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Number 5 is consideration of approving the city's portion of that in the amount of $1,881.46.
Which would be 20% of the bill.
I'll make the motion to approve the city's portion in the amount of $1,881.46.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the city's portion of the bill in the amount of $1,881.46. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Bruning?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 7 is considering. 6 is consideration of approving city's advancement of private funding for facade project in the amount of $1,524.
This reflects the 16.2% private investment that we wouldn't receive any of until the late June to mid-July time period.
I would move to approve the city advancing the private funding for the facade project in the amount of $1,524.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the city's portion. No, the city's advancement of private funding for facade project in the amount of $1,524. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Bruning?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 7 is consideration of approving city's portion of March Frank's Design Group's bill in the amount of $2,622.80.
You approved the CDBG portion last month, but we were still trying to figure out at that point how to deal with the other portion of this. This would reflect the 20% from last month's bill where you approved the 60-some-odd% of the CDBG.
So what was the number 4, Frank's Design? Same thing?
No, that was for this month's bill.
That's for this month's bill, okay.
That's why it says March.
Okay.
And
So
actually, the one
this is kind of a
below-
retroactive approval of what we did.
Yes.
It's a
I
clarification.
need
of
it for the
breakdown.
audit. The auditor always wants to see this type of information on here for clarity purposes. That's why I had to come up with what description to give for 6 and for 8, was because it wasn't the city's portion, nor was it grant money, so I had to come up with some kind of narrative to describe that portion of the money.
So are we going to approve that?
I would move to approve the city's portion of Frank's Design Group bill from the month of March in the amount of $2,622.80.
I'll second it.
600.
Motion
262280, sorry.
has been made and seconded to approve the city's portion of the March bill for Frank's Design Group in the amount of $2,622.80. Would you call for a vote, please?
Just as a point of clarification, the amount is 262280?
80.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Did I
the-
say
The
something
memo
different?
was,
The
Okay.
memo has it wrong.
Okay.
yes.
Councilperson Hanson,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Branning,
Yes.
Bruning,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. 8 is consideration of approving the city's advancement of private funding for facade project in the amount of $2,125.
And that would be the 16.2% of the previous bill.
I'll also move to approve the city's advancement of private fund for the facade project in the amount of $2,125.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the city's advancement of private funding for the facade project in the amount of $2,125. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Bruning,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Branning,
Yes.
motion carried.
9, consideration of resolution number 2014-7 entitled Resolution to Fix a Date for a Public Hearing on Establishing an Interim Financing Loan Agreement.
This would be the public hearing required that we would need for the internal loan.
So what date would you like?
The 22nd. We can get it in the paper next week and meet our minimum. It's we have to, minimum of 4 days publication, or before the meeting prior to approve it. And as long as we get in the next Tuesday paper, we can meet that requirement.
Make a motion to set the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to set the public hearing for resolution number 2014-07, entitled Resolution to Fix a Date for a Public Hearing on Establishing an Interim Financing Loan Agreement. Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to set the public hearing for April 22nd for resolution number 2014-7, the resolution to fix the date of April 22nd for a public hearing on establishing an interim financing loan agreement. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Bruning,
Yes.
Perry,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Branning,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, item number 4, citizens' opportunity to address the council on items not on the agenda. Okay. Yes?
I just have a couple things. It was always our intent to do similar to what Details has done as far as putting outside tables and chairs in front of our restaurant. And so I'd like the approval to use that sidewalk space to do that. And because our sidewalk is very unlevel and slanted, to make it a level space, we were looking at doing a modular little porch-like thing, just that could be removed and put in, so it would not impact any winter snow removal or anything. And so I'd just like to get.
In the past, the council, one of the most obvious scenarios with this type of request, similar to this request, has been Joe Pluth. Years ago, Joe Pluth asked for permission to pave his right-of-way area, which in essence is what the sidewalk location is a right-of-way area. The council gave him permission to pave it under consideration that if they had to do anything at that location, that he bared the expense associated with removal and replacement of that said stuff. In this case, my only concern would be about ease of movement during the, would you have it there at all during the winter time,
No.
Denise?
No, it would come out and before any snow would be an issue.
Or after any snow would be an issue.
Well,
Would
hopefully
come-
before.
yeah.
During the warm months.
Yes, we just, but it's not going to be attached to the building. It's gonna be very portable, it's gonna be in sections that are movable. But to facilitate having anything there without people tipping over, We can't just put it straight on the sidewalk.
How wide would these be?
We're looking at 5 feet, and that still leaves just a little over 5 feet for pedestrian walk area, certainly enough for any mobility needed.
That wouldn't affect any ADA
That was
issues?
my first thought.
No, it doesn't. We measured, but.
Are there planters in front of the building?
No, there are not at the point, at the particular point, but, the chamber has asked if 2 could be moved up there, but we would work around that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
guess,
that's a consideration.
I guess I'm thinking if you take a 30-inch planter into a 5, that makes it difficult for a wheelchair to get through there.
Yeah, no, we would take that into consideration.
The original idea was brought to me by the planning and zoning officer, and I instructed him that this was a matter that would have to be decided by the council, because it involves access and use of the right-of-way area. So,
Do you folks have questions or conversation?
Any safety issues in terms of, let's say, people
It will
tripping
have a
over?
railing around it,
Okay.
within the 5 feet. It's going to be platformed with railings so that we don't have anybody falling off,
Okay.
or, it's gonna be very pretty.
It will just be gravity that holds it in place then?
Well, it'll have, probably gravity and weight.
Well, yeah, I mean, there will be no attachment to either the sidewalk or the building?
No,
of course, you can't act on it tonight, it's not on the agenda, but we could have it on the agenda in 2 weeks. If you had any further questions between now and then, and if you have anything further you'd like to share with them between now and then, I'd be happy to share it with them. And if you have any questions for her, if you let me know, I'll share them with Denise.
Do you have sketches of this proposed?
you're on a bar napkin.
That's all right. I mean,
All my good ideas are on bar napkins.
Schubert wrote Okernig on a bar napkin, it was great,
Yeah.
you know.
But our hope is that we have it available before the expo, so that we can have outside before the extravaganza, so we could have some outside seating and have it.
That is
it's the
the last-
26th.
Yeah,
Okay, the council would meet on the 22nd.
okay. Okay, you had another question about noise, don't forget.
I'm not forgetting. I got my
That
notes.
would, that, I mean, I'm not
I can,
saying
you want me to
it's,
sketch it out real fast?
no, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm saying that I would hate to see you purchase it.
You're too late on that one. I've already got everything purchased for it
Okay.
with the hope for approval by the city.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you're planning to purchase it between now and then,
Yeah,
I would,
If you have anything you'd like to further share with them, I'd be happy to share it with them in the next
Okay.
couple of weeks.
well, other than, there will be some plants on it, and there will be 3 little tables and seating, and
Any bar napkins you want to bring in, I'll be happy to share with you.
we'll have bar, okay, yeah, okay. I'll make sure I bring my bar napkins next time. Would like to ask for permission to have 6th Street closed on the 21st for a street dance.
June
Oh, okay.
21st.
Excuse me, June 21st, and a noise allotment variance for that particular night.
There's an application for that, so if you want to come in sometime in the next 2 weeks, it's a very short application.
Okay. We were also thinking we might, if we're going down to the future, do something on that street during Chautauqua Days too. We're looking at bringing in possibly another band. So just forewarning you, we hope to be very active during the summer. Thirdly, fourthly, probably, we were wondering if it's possible for the city to consider putting a bike rack in the bump out by Mike Vowels, where the 2 benches are. The benches really never seem to be used, but I've had several bikers say there's no place around there to secure their bikes, which makes them hesitant to leave their bikes and go into any facility or any establishment downtown. And because biking is becoming very popular in Sac City, and they bring, you know, they on Thursday night particularly, they bike as a group, but one of their hesitations is coming to Sac is because we don't have bike rack security options for them. So, I don't know if that's something the city would consider.
Do we have one somewhere that's not being used? Did I see one sitting somewhere?
Well, I know that the library purchased a new one and with plans of installing it this spring. I honestly, without looking at it, I don't know what the shape of their old one is.
I haven't looked into them, but now they can be very aesthetically pleasing, you know, just the loops that the.
Yeah, I think that's what their new one is.
Yeah.
I think the
It'd be-
old one is much more of a,
Yeah, the old ones
rack.
are pretty, I'm
It's a
not sure.
shorter,
Yeah, and I'm not sure the real bikers that are putting, you know, $2,000 bikes on it want something, they're gonna want something pretty substantial and reassuring that their bikes aren't leaking.
can you just get options and we
Yeah,
can
you wanna
discuss it at
look
the next
into
meeting?
costs and
Look
stuff?
into options
Yeah.
and,
And I'm not suggesting that that's only, that is the only place. You might look at the other bump outs too and see if there's an option for, or other locations throughout the community for that. That's just a question, throwing it out.
Thank
But
you.
if you need catalog, I've got it.
Thank you.
And that is it. So I will just wait to hear, or,
well, what we'll end up doing is you'll need to come in to fill out the application for the noise variance.
yes.
But on the rest of it, we'll take a process of, there's a couple of them we'll have probably on the next agenda.
Okay.
Prepare to have on the next agenda. The only one that might have, let's see, none of them pertain to a liquor license, so no. I mean, they all probably could be proceeded on to next
Okay,
council.
and our liquor license applies to anything adjacent, directly adjacent to our building, so we do have that. One other question, it's my understanding that we have to have outside porta potties, is that correct?
That
Anybody
is
know?
not the case, no.
No? Okay, but we also have to have a security presence.
If
Now,
there's
for the
alcohol,
liquor
yeah.
licensing,
Yeah.
and that's a separate request. You're asking us to close the road, but then are you also asking us to use
The street.
the street for that purpose? Because there's a difference
Yes.
in the request.
Yes.
Usually, Viking Bay has been the one to do these type of requests in the past. Usually, there's a request for closing the road. There's a request for using the road for their purposes. And then in that case, typically, they provide quite a bit of information, and I think Ross is already being in and talked to us about what information he would need to get in order to get that portion approved. Because there's a couple of things the council needs to see in order to approve that element of the process.
So while we're discussing that, the chamber is looking at doing the Freedom Fest on the 22nd in conjunction with this and having a.
21st.
21st, excuse me, and having it be a not just biker, but bicycles. And we're looking at doing some kind of games on the street, so do they have to come and get one of these as well?
In the case of if you are closing multiple lanes, the city council is the only body that can give permission
Okay.
for closing multiple lanes. If you're asking to close a lane.
No, it'll be both.
Okay, then that doesn't.
Well, if we're partnering on that, do we both have to ask for permission?
Well, there's no cost associated with the request. Yours in particular is for alcohol purposes,
Right.
so you would have to ask for yours separately.
What?
The closing of the road could be asked by one person.
Okay.
But the use of it would need to be divided up, because yours is going to require special requirements to meet the use requirements.
Okay.
Because you're planning to use alcohol, you have alcohol on that part of the street.
Yes.
So you'd have to have special,
Do we have to have anything special if we were to grill hot dogs out there?
as long as Sherry Wilson doesn't chase you away, I don't think so.
She's our.
And it's not
person-
Sherry Wilson anymore.
No,
County
public
sanitary.
health has somebody that we need to come and inspect.
Oh, Okay,
And all
Food
the other
licensing.
BB County.
We wouldn't have anything to do with it, I guess was my point.
okay.
They
Okay,
come from Starlight somewhere.
anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, she takes care of.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, we're gonna move on to 5, license and permits. And letter A is renewal license for Sac County VFW doing business as Sac County Post 590 Veterans of Foreign War Class A liquor license with Sunday sales. John's not here, but does you think, anybody have any concerns?
I'll make a motion to renew the license with Sac County VFW, doing business in Sac County Post 590, Foreign Wars, Class A liquor license with Sunday sales.
Second it.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the liquor license for Sac County VFW doing business as Sac County Post 590, Veterans of Foreign War Class A liquor license with Sunday sales. Call for a vote.
Councilperson McGinty,
Yes.
Brenny,
Yes.
Rooney,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. 6, miscellaneous B is consideration of resolution number 2014-5 entitled Resolution Setting
Did you do B,
No.
Wessel Oil?
Wessel Oil. Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. License and permits. B, renewal license for Wessel's Oil Company Incorporated doing business as Wessel's Crossroads of Sac City Class C beer permit with Sunday sales.
I'll make the motion to approve Wessel's Oils Company, DBA, Wessel's Crossroads for Class C beer permit with Sunday sales.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Wessel's Oil Company in doing business as Wessel Crossroads of Sac City Class C beer permit with Sunday sales. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Bruni,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Brenny,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, now we'll move on to 6, miscellaneous, consideration of resolution number 2014-6 entitled Resolution Setting a Public Hearing on the Policy of Disbursements of Funds from the Sac Community Foundation.
Councilman Perry pointed out that one of the policies that was set up when the foundation was put into place required that the foundation get permission from the city upon request for money to be distributed for use on city property to the city council before being allocated. And what made sense to us was that in the case of where the applicant is the city, that seemed to be a redundant and inefficient process. So one of the things that, in order to change this, you have to do a public hearing. In order to change this, the philosophy was we'd add a caveat into the policy that the exception would be when the city is the applicant. It doesn't require to follow those initial steps.
We're wanting to set a public hearing for
Yeah.
this, so that's what we're asking
Yep.
to do.
I would move the adoption of resolution number 2014-06 entitled Resolution Setting a Public Hearing on the Policy of Disbursements of Funds from the Sac Community Foundation.
And we need to set the date, don't we?
Which is April 22nd.
Yes, which would be April 22nd.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to set a public hearing for resolution number 2014-06, policy of disbursements of funds from the Sac Community Foundation to the meeting on April 22nd. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Brenny,
Yes.
Rooney,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. B is consideration of resolution number 2014-5 entitled Resolution Setting a Public Hearing for the Disposition of Principal Funds under Agreement between Jackson Township, the Sac City American Legion, and the City of Sac City.
I actually noticed in the room tonight we have a representative from Jackson Township with us. Have you been approached on this issue yet, Craig?
Just a little.
Yeah. We received communication from a representative, Sharon Mayo, that the way that this agreement was originally set up, and there's quite a bit of information in your packet about this issue, and I've got probably a 4-inch thick folder to provide you additional information if you're interested. Not without going into all 70 years of the history, just to go back to 2001. In 2001, the building was being sold, which was the townhouse at the time. And at that time, a deal was made between the township and the city and the American Legion that was approved by the courts, that the way it would work is what the proceeds of the sale, the proceeds that were received from the sale would be put into a CD, and that the interest on that would be used by the American Legion in order to pay for having a meeting room and to have a place to store their material. The principle, which was put into the CD, that at the end of the time when this CD was continued, 55% would go to the city of Sac City and 45% would go to Jackson Township. That is the approved agreement. Did Sharon indicate to you what their interest was, Craig?
It's just basically nothing.
They are now in a situation where the interest is not providing enough income, and I guess it is primarily their sole income, in order to provide that type of support. And so I think they find themselves in a position of trying to decide anywhere between what the future of this is to the future of the organization as a whole. I take it. There's only a handful of them that are active, I understand.
The agreement was it would go until the American Legion disbanded.
Right.
So I don't have a feeling what the American Legion even thinks of this.
Well, one thing I can tell you, there has been letters sent out to the membership in regards to disbanding.
So,
I talked too much, but my feeling on this is that we should maybe talk to the city attorney. We've got 75 years of legal history partially sitting in front of us, and even before we set a public hearing, let's get some legal options as to what might be.
Agreed. Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We had a meeting yesterday and we voted to do the agreement if it is, everything's legal according to the county attorney on our end. And he's looking into that right now.
sure. I will be happy, I mean, if you don't want to take action on it tonight, I'd be happy to come back in 2 weeks and let you know what the city attorney says. Maybe get a little more information from
Yeah,
Sharon
that's-
Mayo about what
In
they're.
fact, to give time, why don't can we put it on the agenda a month from now? To give Colin time to actually look at it. And
Is there a hurry? Is there a hurry, do you know?
Well, the vote was last week, and I am not an active member, so I don't know if there was a vote or if there's an outcome to the vote.
I mean, if they're disbanding, then the terms of the agreement are pretty clear.
Yeah. Then it would simply be an exhaustion of the CD at that point.
Okay.
I'll get more clarification from Sharon, maybe even have Sharon go with me when I go to, maybe meet with Sharon in the presence of Colin at that time.
I haven't even talked to Sharon about it. It's just basically been Kevin Murray.
I talked a little bit to Kevin, and then I had a visit from Sharon Mayo, and he seemed to indicate that they were seeking action. And so I'll talk to Sharon and see if he won't meet with me and Colin and see if we can't work out exactly what they want, if this is simply just a disbandment and an exhaustion of the CD, or if they're looking to make changes to the terms.
Well, what my understanding was is we were each gonna take a third. We'd take a third, the city take a third, and then we would give a third to the Legion to meet wherever they wanted to meet, but that would be the end of it.
But if they were disbanding,
That's not-
that is.
Right, if they disband, then it goes back to the original. But Kevin Murray did talk about getting out of the trust. And from what he said, he talked to a judge or something and said as long as every party agrees to what you want to do, they're fine with it. So we can change it, even though it says that it's 55-45 and they have to disband. As long as all three parties agree, there's no problem with it.
And Sharon Mayo has just had back surgery, so he will probably not want to go see him right away.
Sure.
Gordon Mooney is the commander.
Who?
Gordon Mooney?
Chip Colburn, I think, is a rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could contact Chip too. Okay, are we done with that discussion? Right, then we're gonna move on to opening and review of fuel bids for the city operation and possible award. Here's the end of okay.
We got
We
three.
have 3 bids.
Good.
First one is from Star Energy.
Good thing you got one.
Their bond is here. Their bid is on gasoline, 0.135. Number 1 diesel, 0.145. Number 2 diesel, 0.135. Larson Oil. On everything, it's 0.149. Al's Corner. And they've included their insurance and bond. On gasohol and unleaded, and number 2 diesel are all, he's got 20, so I'm assuming 0.2. And on number 1 diesel, 0.3, or 30 is what he's got written. Who are we looking at?
They would
Star.
make Star Energy the cheapest on all 3 versions.
I would move acceptance of Star Energy's low bid.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Star Energy's low bid of yes.
Oh, I thought you could have finished and then asked her questions. Could you explain briefly what these numbers mean?
They are the difference between what do you call it? The
Percentage that
Moines-
we,
It's the,
Des Moines rack price. That's what I was looking for, the Des Moines rack price. Basically, since cities don't pay the tax on it, the only real question in the fuel, the difference in the price of the fuel, is what they want as their fee for providing it on a gallon by gallon basis. And so what they bid, this amount you're seeing is the per gallon price that they're charging for their cost for providing us the fuel. The price of the commodity itself is based on the rack price. So none of us have any control over that. It's a lot like pricing for natural gas. It's to get proper bidding on this, you almost have to tell them that if the rack price is $2, what is your additional amount you're going to charge for, what's your bid amount to deliver it to us? And so this is really what they're bidding on is the overhead, what
Sure.
they're getting paid overhead.
Sure. Can you tell me, it was Star Energy last year, is that correct?
Yes, and the year before it was Larson Oil.
That was Larson. Can you tell me what their bid was last year? Do you recall?
Do you remember what it was before? I know we looked last time, and I don't remember. Does it say in the minutes?
it wasn't a lot different than the second, was it?
I was 8.12, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess it's slightly higher. I wanted to say.
I was thinking it was
119.
119, I think, is what you said last.
So it's slightly higher than it was last year.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we had a motion and a second to approve Star Energy's bid of .135 over for gas, .145 for number 1 diesel, and .135 for number 2 diesel. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, D is the third reading of ordinance number 2014-255, an ordinance entitling, authorizing the vacation and sale of the east-west alley line within block 42 between lots 2 through 9 and Platts Edition of Sac City, Sac County, Iowa. Have you had any communication?
No.
Okay. This is the third reading and last.
The fifth time we've talked about it.
Been there a while.
Make a motion to approve third reading of ordinance number 2014-255 entitled an ordinance authorizing the vacation and sale of east-west alley line within block 42 between lots 2 through 9 at Platts Edition of Sac City, Sac County, Iowa.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the third reading of ordinance 2014-255. The ordinance authorizing the vacation and sale of the east-west alley line between block 42, between lots 2 through 9, and Platts Edition of Sac City, Sac County, Iowa. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Perry?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Motion carried.
6 miscellaneous E is consideration of resolution number 2014-3 entitled a resolution of support and financial commitment for the Main Street program in Sac City.
Every year or two, we get this request. This is something that the IEDA requires as part of Chamber Main Street's recertification process to show commitment from the local community, and that's what this is.
Necessary to stay as a Main
Yes,
Street community.
Yes. Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2014-03 entitled a resolution of support and financial commitment for the Main Street program in Sac City.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve resolution number 2014-3, a resolution of support and financial commitment for the Main Street program in Sac City. Call for a vote.
Councilperson Perry?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. F is consideration of resolution number 2014-4 entitled amending rules of procedure for conduct of city business, Sac City, Iowa. For those that don't know why this is on the agenda, we've been having meetings going over, open meetings, going over our rules of conduct as far as holding these meetings and the various ways we are gonna conduct business. And we had our last meeting last Thursday, and we have it ready to vote on.
There'll be changes coming to the way our council meetings occur as a result of this, not time and date related changes, but you'll see some changes to the agenda, you'll see some changes to the flow of business at council meetings that will happen, and of course, we've all been involved in those discussions, so probably Sandy's the one that needs to be most up to speed in this process. I do have a few things that I would ask that if you do make a motion to approve this, that you amend it with these changes included. Under 1.07, the title of that is Council Members Telephonic Participation. That should read Council Members Electronic Participation. That was a change that we identified had been missed. And then the sentence immediately below that makes the comment of participating by telephone, and we should change that to participating by electronic means. And because the idea is that telephone is not the only form of alternatives. Skype, of course, is being used this winter, I believe, by Wall Lake for a council member who snowbirds down south. So just to give us an example. There was one other change in 2.06. In 2.06, you'll see the order of the agenda shall be as follows. And you'll see down there, after 8, you see miscellaneous and special subject matter. We had discussed making a continuous business, continuing business.
Category?
Yes, and that would be more just, I would throw things in there that are more related to, nothing more than maybe a quick update on what's going on with something like the park project or something like that. They're really not anything that we have plans to spend a lot of time in the agenda on. It's purely just a update, more of an updated related subject matter. So those would be the two, if you're gonna make a motion, I'd recommend that you include those 2 changes, or those technically 3 changes in your motion as well.
I would move to accept the resolution number 2014-04, City of Sac City Governing Body Rules of Procedure as presented. And then we'll have to amend it, I believe.
Right, as amended.
No, we'll have to, I think, don't we have to move it as presented and then move to amend it?
Not yet.
You-
Technically, well, I mean, next council meeting, that would be the proper process for us to use, yes.
Okay, I would move to accept it with the changes of changing telephonic and telephone to electronic and adding item 8, between 8 and 9 in number 2.06.
We haven't made Robert's Rules our guiding principle yet, so we can still make those changes.
Council member electronic communication. That was a change.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah,
Okay.
changing the 2 telephones to electronic means and adding the continuing business item on the agenda.
Second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve resolution number 2014-4, amending rules of procedure for conduct of city business, Sac City, Iowa, with the amendment of telephonic being changed to electronic communications, and also adding order of agenda after 8, we would add continuing business as a category. Would you call for?
You have it,
Yeah,
Connie.
Curtis.
Could you hit the major highlights for us?
Oh, well, we corrected an error in the fact that it said that our meetings would be at 5:30 instead of 5 o'clock. A lot of it had to do with identifying the role more of the Sergeant of Arms in the process of the meeting. We also spent some time talking about whether Robert's Rules of Order would dictate our practices when the state does not. And you might remember there was quite a discussion on how that would change our process when we're doing ordinances, when we're having votes, when we're having motions. Other than that, primarily the changes, there were a lot of grammatic changes in the form itself. And then I mean, can you remember anything? You were at those meetings too.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of
I'm just looking for a
substance
capsule.
change.
One of the major things is that we will be taking the motion in the second, and then having conversation, and then voting. Before, we were conversing about it, and then taking the motion in the second, and then voting. Now, they'll make a motion a second, we'll have discussion, and then we'll vote on it. Moving forward, that's the way we'll do it.
Just a quick question. Is sort of everything that was decided during the work sessions been implemented? Has anything been scratched on that last Thursday?
On the last Thursday, there wasn't really, the last Thursday, just so you know, Curtis, the meeting, I think, lasted, 15 minutes? And I think there was 1 or 2 wording changes, and that was
And
it.
we
really
accepted
didn't find-
everything, we just
We really
changed
didn't find
language.
anything.
15 minutes.
Yeah, it was really
Alright.
short.
It was more of a matter of just closing the book on chapter 3, but there really wasn't a whole lot to change in chapter 3.
All right, thank you.
Okay, pardon me? Did we vote? No.
No.
Well, the motion has been made and seconded, but we need to vote on it. Sorry, you guys. I forgot where we were.
Councilperson Hanson? Yes. McGinty? Brennan?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Perry? Motion carries.
G is consideration of approving an agreement between the City of Sac City and the Sac City Chautauqua Days Committee.
It was pointed out during some discussions that we act as the backbone of the Chautauqua Days event. Even though the Chautauqua Days Committee is technically not a city committee, we provide the insurance support for the project, and we also provide funding that is used primarily for the fireworks portion of the event. And it was pointed out during some discussions that it probably wouldn't hurt for us to have something in writing that formalizes what that relationship is. So I drafted something up. I warned Brandy Ripley at Chamber, who also was the main representative for the Chautauqua Days Committee, that I'd be drafting something up for some consideration. It's not really meant to change anything in the current relationship, but only to just put it in writing.
Define it.
Right.
Yeah,
I've got a question. For the last 30 years, the Chautauqua Days Committee basically has had problems. Is there any reason we can't make that a city committee?
well,
So there is an actual direction and a meeting time and things like this, no different than planning and zoning and things like this?
Historically, was it a city committee at one time, long ago?
I don't remember. There's been discussion about, I'm tired of doing this and all this other, and if it would be an actual city committee.
I don't know, we have a very active committee right now that's
That's
working
great.
on it, and
That's great.
pretty much-
I'm just thinking that, you know, all the discussion over the past however many years.
I'm sure it's something if the committee wanted to talk to us about, I mean, they definitely could approach us with it. Gary?
Since we can't really make that change tonight, since it's not on the agenda, I would move adoption of the agreement between the City of Sac City and the Sac City Chautauqua Days Committee.
I'll second that.
motion has been made and seconded to approve the agreement between the City of Sac City and the Sac City Chautauqua Days Committee. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. H is consideration of final application for tax abatement under the city's urban revitalization plan for Justin and Stephanie Belcock, Kevin and Kim Borkowski, Terry Duffy for the Kids LLC, Jason Hanrahan, Larry and Mary Clint, Trent McDonough, and Chad and April Peterson.
What is For the Kids LLC?
That would be the Opsals.
Which one?
Downtown.
I'm not sure which one.
No, it's,
It's their incorporation's name.
That actually,
South Third, is that the Freedom Rock building or what?
no, that would be their,
South Third would be home.
Okay.
It's all, I think it's part of, they have pretty much everything in the kids, for the kids.
Gotcha.
The address of the property is
So it's probably the garage out
515
back.
West Main.
515 West Main.
That would be the actual,
That would be
that'd be the hot dog
Savings.
place.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. I'll make a motion. Nope.
Curtis?
It's been a couple years since you guys discussed it. Could you briefly just tell us how the tax abatement program works?
It's,
Pass this to Blackie, then really.
under chapter 4, I'm glad I looked this up, just for you, Curtis. Chapter 404 of the Iowa State Code allows cities, as an incentive program, to provide an abatement opportunity. It can be for commercial, it can be for industrial, it can be for residential. If you're improving the value of the property by more than 20%, and Bobby Hawks signs off on that, the county assessor, you can apply for a tax abatement opportunity, which of course reduces the increased realization of that increased value over a period of time. You, in the case of residents, you could choose a 5-year or a 2-year option. In the case of commercial, there's actually 3 options if you can qualify for this special third option. But yeah, so does that kind of answer
Yep.
the question to some degree?
It sure does. If you guys were to not approve these tonight, what would the consequences be? Are you able to not approve them?
Yes, it's purely up to the council whether they give tax abatements or not. It's an option. It's a choice they have to make. It would be like rebates. Rebates are purely at the discretion of the council whether they give them back or not. Now, it doesn't make much sense to allow it for some and not for others.
It's meant to stimulate or give them an incentive to build or
Yeah.
better their properties.
I'll make a motion that we approve the final application for tax abatement under the city's urban revitalization plan. Do I say them all? For Justin and Stephanie Belcock, Kevin and Kim Burkowski, Terry Duffy, or the Kids LLC, Jason Hanran, Larry and Mary Clint, Trent McDonough, and Ted and April Peterson.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the final application for tax abatement under the city's urban revitalization plan for the Babcocks, Kevin and Kim Burkowski, Terry Duffy, for the Kids LLC, Jason Hanrahan, Larry and Mary Clint, Trent Medai, and Chad and April Peterson. Call for a vote.
Councilperson Perry?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Thank you. 7 is public input on solid waste matters. Is there any public input this evening?
It's not public, but I'll make it during this segment rather than do it through the council forum. Gary, I continue to get complaints by people in town about the glass, the elimination of glass as a recycle. That's not going away. I'm continuing to get it on a monthly basis.
Okay,
We're gonna recycle shingles though.
All right. And we are.
okay. Number 8 is the council forum, and I have one thing that was brought to my attention, and a representative from the senior meals came to me and said that their bills for gas were over $450, and that they are having a very difficult time paying some of these bills because of the structure of the organization. I believe they said they had applied for a stipend from the city. They wondered if there was any way they could get a portion of that money, or if they were going to be approved to get some money, or if there was anything that we could do to help them.
Who was, okay, what group was talking to?
The person that runs it, Pat.
Joanne.
Pat.
And I know what you're referencing to. They did not make a change in structure. Of the
No, they didn't. That's true.
So did they actually pay the utilities, or does the senior citizens group pay the utilities?
Well, they do, but they don't have any money.
It's
Does
not
he-
a county,
No, the county, in many cases, the
Building?
county pay, but this group pays their own utilities.
So the senior citizens group, but that's not really the one that runs the meals, is that my understanding?
Well, they were gonna vote to change it, and it didn't go through, did it?
No,
The
it
change
didn't.
did not go through.
So I think,
So there's a little organization there that pays all
So
of the
Lon-
bills.
yeah, Lonnie Rubendahl, I think, is the representative for that one.
Right, you're right. And she just said to me they are having real difficult financial trouble. And they wondered if there was anything that,
Well, the allocation for this year didn't happen until February, didn't it? We
Whenever you
didn't,
got that from
January or
Lonnie
February.
turned it in.
And so, I mean, in essence, what they would be requesting is next year's allocation this year, is in essence what they'd be asking for.
and she said they were gonna do some fundraisers, like they were planning to do another biscuit and gravy thing, but they don't have any money to pay their heat bills, what she pretty much said.
Yeah, as
And
of
it was
right now, the
$450.
allocation approved by the council has been paid out for this year.
Okay.
And we just recently paid that out to them in the
Well,
last couple of months.
Did they get their allocation last year?
The year before that,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't answer that question.
I'm just bringing it to where I was supposed to.
I was just,
Yeah.
I wonder if they didn't get it, could we go back and,
Well, I mean, being that it's cycled a fiscal year, it would take action of the council to approve any additional allocations
So can you check and see if they got it and let us know at the next meeting?
for the 2013-14 year, or
12,
13.
12-13. Sure.
Barb, I have a question for Bill and Teresa. I can't get my breath real good today because I've been sick for 5 days. And on this facade, you guys were sitting on the committee. Out of curiosity, does your committee, are they in total agreement on kind of everything that you guys act on? This, I'm asking. What I'm concerned about is this.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it came to us and said the program was gonna cost the city anything. Then we come back and said it's gonna cost us $150,000. But at that time, we had 38, 39 people signed up. Now we only have 18 or 19, but that 150,000 is still there. That doesn't seem quite, because we voted on the 38, 39 people that had signed up for the 150,000. Now, I'm
That's
just
based
asking,
on the total amount, and like in the cities, like
but
in
how
May,
could the total not change if you had 39 people down to 19?
because we're still gonna get that same
Scope.
amount from the federal. The grant is
But the
500,000.
costs should be dropped.
Well, I can actually answer that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just
I need some clarification.
The original estimates, when the architect first was hired, the architect looked at what was being planned for the properties and did a rough estimate at that time based upon previous projects, and determined this project was going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of between 1.6 and 1.8 million dollars. And of course, the budget for this project is only about $750,000. Well, now with the amount of individuals that are included, right now, the plans for the budget for about 18 people are sitting in the neighborhood of about, it's sitting in the neighborhood of between $750,000 and $800,000, roughly in that range right now.
Okay, so that 150 was.
Yeah. In
I never asked
essence,
that, that's why it was just.
If
Just
you're
sitting
asking
there
if our
thinking
part's
that-
gonna go up, no, it's not, but
No.
it's the scope of the project and what the people want done. That's gonna, and they don't even know for sure yet on that,
But I
right?
understand.
That's still-
I
Till the
understand in the
architect-
facade that they may not even get the front of the buildings improved outside of tough coating, maybe new windows.
Just depends on what each
And doors.
business owner,
Do they
That's
realize that these people go that are the 18, 19 people, but businesses that are there? That's what I'm concerned about. Do they think they're gonna get improvements on the front, the way they look? Or do they realize that all they're gonna get maybe is
it's
facade?
what,
I know it's not gonna happen.
it's
but
what the
do they
business
know
owner
that?
has said they wanted.
So they don't mind if it's just strictly tuck pointing? and
That's what the
windows and
business
windows?
owners have said
That's
so
what I was
far,
getting at.
yes.
Okay.
Yep, at least that's my understanding.
quite a bit of the allocation looks like it's going to be windows and doors.
Which is
And-
fine. I
tuck
Tuck
and
pointing,
tuck
windows, doors.
Yeah, which
There's-
in essence, to answer your question, and this was discussed a little bit over a week ago, was the idea that from a visible outlook, many of the buildings would not see significant outside change, if that's all they end up doing. And I use that caveat because it's still
It's still in the works.
Yeah, well,
until you
that's
get to
okay.
the
I
bid.
You
realize
know,
that, but
once
it's
they
just-
meet with the architect, then they could change their mind even more.
Well, I've never heard
depending
anything
on-
from you too, and I'm just kind of curious if we're
Mhm.
coming along or going, I
Yeah.
just have to see that.
There really hasn't been a lot
That's okay.
done yet, really, I mean.
And really, it's an opportunity for the,
Hey,
you know, those that are still involved, you know, if they want to step up, you know.
I'm really
and look
sad
at
that
the
some of them
overall-
dropped out, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's free money, and people aren't taking as much advantage of it as I wish they would have, but what do you do?
But for those that are left, they should look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
16%
It's a huge opportunity.
share in a, you know, a front, you know, facade improvement, certainly a
I'm not
good deal.
against it, 'cause I made some of the motions for this.
You know, and it's
I'm
like,
just
it's
saying.
like we've said several times, and I think Laura maybe said it at the last meeting. We're not gonna beg people to participate anymore.
No.
You know, it's free money, like Bill just said, it's 16% of your money, which is little to nothing. We're done begging. I mean, either you wanna improve your business and the facade of your business, or you don't.
Well, I guess I had visions at the beginning we were gonna have them.
So did I,
looked at.
so did I, yeah.
And
That
I
was-
just had not heard otherwise, that's what I was getting at.
Honestly, I think that was somewhat of a realization going on at the last
Mhm,
meeting.
it was.
that-
It was, yeah.
I think the big thing, everybody didn't understand the original application, my understanding being a property owner, was basically slum and blight. It wasn't a preservation. It was basically fixing problems.
Yes, I didn't see that.
That's where we're coming from now. When those-
The urban development area that we're operating under is a slum and blight urban development area. But remember that that historic preservation, even in a slum and blight district, is approaching towards the idea of preserving and preventing the deterioration of something that might be in a slum and blight state.
So kind of a general feeling of the committee was not to discourage anybody from doing something as long as it fits within the guidelines of the grants and improves the value of the building. Is that what you're saying? That's it?
The only thing I think that somewhat is still left in the question hopper is had to do with signage and awnings. There still seemed to be some flexibility among the committee, at least that was my outsider's opinion that day, about whether or not they wanted to allow those to be a part of the process in the end or not. And that and at some point in the next couple of months, they'll have to be a final decision on that element.
Good.
Thank you.
Just as a report too from the community center, I'm sure all of you know, but Ashley resigned.
Was her last day last
She's
week?
done, yeah, last Friday. So we are now in search of a new director, so I thought I'd report that.
The Arts Council is hosting the Village People Public Theater on Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Community Center for kids. It's a free event. Don't really know too much about it since I haven't been invited to any of their meetings, but they are, if you have kids, grandkids, take them. It's a good place to entertain them. A 10 o'clock show, 11 o'clock music workshop, and 1 o'clock you get to build a puppet or something.
And I guess I should also report there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes about Blue Space right now. In fact, Barb and I and Brandy have a meeting with Megan from Blue Space tomorrow sometime. I'll have to look at my calendar to see when. But they're gearing up for the survey. They did their interviews. We had worked on identifying a list of people for them, and they did their interviews for that. So now they're proceeding towards their survey. So you'll start seeing more and more information of that probably by the next council meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Barb,
Where did the mayor go?
she told me to call for a motion, so let me call for the motion first, okay? I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second? Did you say second? Okay.
Councilperson McGinty?
Yes.
Rennie?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Harry? Hanson?
Just noticed she was gone or what?